First order of business is the approval of the minutes of March 15th. Okay. There was an edited version put up at noon or 1 o'clock or something. But anybody have any changes?
I read the minutes at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. I don't have any changes to offer.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
No.
You have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
I'll make that motion that we adopt the minutes as they were presented.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second. Bruce made the motion. Ann seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, it carries 6-0. Okay, the next order of business is we have a public hearing. Would our vice chairman like to read the call?
Oh, I got to get there.
Do we not?
Sorry, let me back up.
First?
We passed, I skipped over the appointment of the zoning enforcement officer. Mike, would you explain what we're asked to do here?
Yeah, so Laura Barkowski, who was our land use specialist, has been promoted. She is now the code compliance officer and the zoning officer. So just pursuant to state statute, now she has the new title. She also needs to be appointed and designated by this commission. And then just for backup purposes, Tom Hazel, who's your current zoning enforcement officer, we have him on the agenda as being appointed as assistant zoning officer. That's just so Laura can take a vacation, et cetera, and someone's there to cover her while she's out.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I don't know if I heard that right, Mike. Did you say that Tom is currently the zoning enforcement officer?
That's correct.
And now we're appointing Laura as the zoning enforcement officer.
Yep, Laura moved up in the world.
She's moved up to so we have 2 zoning enforcement officers.
So we only do it for backup purposes. So Tom he's an assistant zoning enforcement officer. So he'll only serve as the zoning officer when Laura's like on vacation, for example.
Okay, I get the picture. Got it.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, can we have a motion to make these changes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Laura Barkowski as zoning enforcement officer, effective, do we have a date?
Today.
Mike?
Today? Effective
Yep.
today, April 5th, 2021.
Your second?
Second it.
Second by
Diane was first.
First in my eye, okay. Kevin made the motion, Bruce seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Okay, it carries 6-0. Thank you very much. And the second act is to appoint Tom Hazel as Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer. Can I have a motion to that effect?
Okay, again, Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Tom Hazel as Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer, effective April 5th, 2021.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded?
Diane.
Diane. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
All in favor? No abstentions? Okay. Then it carries 6-0. Thank you. All right. Now, the next order of business is we have a public hearing and on a zone change. And would our vice chairman please read the call?
Public hearing for application number 21-04 of EAY Properties LLC owner, Philip Doyle, agent for zone change from R40 to B1 district on the property located at 332 Hot Meadow Street, Assessors Map G15, Block 145, Lot 002.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to make a statement as to what you're asking for and why?
Yes, sir. Philip Doyle. I am the agent for the applicant. My office, LADA, is at 104 West Street. We've been here working in town since about 1987. And we've made an application for to change the zone of the 7.85 or so acre site to B1 from R40. And the site is also overlaid with the existing floodplain zone. Nothing would change in regard to the floodplain zone. We've been before you with an informal, and we've also gone to the Planning Commission, and you probably know that we received the support of the Planning Commission. They indicated that the proposal would be consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development. We've also indicated to you, although it's informal, that the request for the change of zone would be for my client to be able to build in the barn and or in addition to the barn a craft brewery, and I'd like to have a tasting room on the property. If the zone change were approved, those uses and whatever we would propose that would physically change the nature of the site would have to come back to the commission for site plan special exception approval. And we have felt that this is generally consistent. Our request is consistent with the area. We would note in our research that over time, this east side of the Hot Meadow Street Route 10 has changed in nature. A number of years ago, I made the application for the Riverview, for the zone change, and for the site plan approval. At that point, the state was in the process of redesigning the park and ride, and which they have redesigned, that's associated with Winslow Place. We also know that back in the 80s, this particular piece of property received a use variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And, our experience has always been, and zoning in general has found, that use variances are difficult to obtain, but the use variance was granted for the use of the property as a movie studio with less than 10 employees. And variances, we all know, run with the land. So the property has had a history of commercial zoning and use. We also know that back in 2010, coming in front of your commission, and per state statutes would have also had to go to planning for a referral, was the purchase of additional land in the center of our property by the Abigail's restaurant owners to extend the parking and also the zoning into the property. And in September 28th of 2010, your commission approved the rezoning of the center of this parcel from R40 to B1. And then a week later, at the site plan level, you approved the parking lot extension into this piece. This piece has, to a degree, been broken in two, has had a projection put into it by the extension of the B1 zone into the R40. And in our case, we think it makes sense for our use to have the property rezoned in its entirety B1. We know, we showed you the maps, I believe, last week. And Laura, I think you have control of the screen, don't you? You there? Mike, does
Actually, Phil, you should be able the ability to share. Is it down on the bottom, the green button say share?
on my screen right now, I don't have a share button coming up. Usually you guys have to allow that to happen.
It's okay. I'll do that right now.
I have the share button on mine.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're on a laptop, you have to scroll down to see it.
Okay,
Oh, good to know.
Mike,
I mean, Phil, which,
I've just widened out my
like me-
screen, Mike,
okay.
and I've got it. So I'm gonna turn on the,
Okay.
I'm gonna go back and try to get up one of my plans. I'm having a hard time doing it, Mike. I don't know if you have the ability to put up any of yours.
Yeah, let me, I can get into it. Which map do you want to see?
Just the basic application package that we had emailed over, that we shared with the commission. Because my screen is showing out of memory, and we're never going to get past that. Yeah, that's the zone change map. One of the requirements of the filing is have the surveyor prepare the zone change map, and you can see in the center of that projection of the land that was rezoned in 2010 to B1, and it's the land that's to the left of that projection, that's between that projection into the site and Hot Meadow Street, that is the only portion of this property that is above the floodplain. Everything else on the property is within the floodplain. So there's about 1.6 acres of the site that is not floodplain. The existing house on the property is above the floodplain, and the barn is above the floodplain. And as we had indicated to you, our future plans were to leave the house as it is, and potentially to use the barn as a craft brewery. We don't know if we would have to do an addition or not to the barn. This picture, Mike, that I had submitted shows the existing conditions, the parking lot that extends behind the daycare right there, and behind Abigail's. That's the piece that was purchased, and the entry drive further on the right, that area was also purchased, rezoned by the town, and that now projects into the site. And the corner of that B1 zone that projects in is within 25 or 30 feet of the barn that is on the property. So that's pretty much the nature of the application. We would like to have the land rezoned B1 so that we can eventually, hopefully, make a site plan application and bring that before the commission.
Okay. Questions first of the commissioners, and then we will take statements from the public. We have quite a few people here who have submitted letters, and you're certainly entitled to express your opinions. First, the commissioners. Anybody have questions on
Well,
this?
I don't have a question, but I did notice on the survey that it's a little off. It has the Connecticut River instead of the Farmington River.
Yes. It should be labeled Farmington. I think that was pretty.
So I guess I have a question. Last time we spoke with you, or at least last time that I was on a meeting that we spoke to you, the plan was to use the barn for a craft brewery. And today we're hearing that you may want to put on an addition, or you may want to add an extra building. Where would you envision that going, especially with respect to visibility from Hot Meadow or from the abutting or across the street residential properties?
It's a good question. I got two answers. One is when we came in and talked to you before, we've been talking about using the barn, and that's still the case.
Right, but it isn't huge. I've taken another look at it. It's not huge.
Oh no, the barn is small. The barn, and
Yeah.
we all know that the barn's only about 2,400 square feet. It's 2 stories on the inside, but it's not huge. And if we were able to have the zone changed, it's at that point that we're going to internally sit down and figure out whether or not we need to do an addition on that barn. We can program that. So the only addition of any type that we've ever contemplated would be an addition to the barn. And
So would that addition, just knowing what the barn property is, would it be possible to make that addition away from Hot Meadow, or would it be really kind of more up toward the Hot Meadow section? And where would parking go in terms of visibility from Hot Meadow?
those are all site plan questions that I can't answer at this point. And
Okay.
for commission, those have to be answered at the site plan level. All I can do right now is kind of speculate about that. And speculation isn't good, but in general, I think our feeling has been that we'd like to do nothing up towards Hot Meadow Street. And if we do anything on the property, it would be away from Hot Meadow Street as parking and or an addition.
Okay, but this is an application for zone change.
Correct.
And so we really should stick to the issues related to changing the zone and what are the considerations we should be looking at. Mike, do you have any comments on that?
Wait a second, Dave. I still have some questions here.
Okay, well, I'm just asking Mike
Yeah, okay.
for any considerations that he think are appropriate for a zone change.
I think as I stated in my staff memo, one thing you want to look at is kind of like a larger picture, not just the craft brewery that's being proposed, that's potentially on the horizon, because that can go away in a moment's notice, and you rezone it, and you have a property that's zoned to B1, and all these other uses can be established. So I would almost look at that. What is there anything that if this were to be rezoned where it may have a negative impact based on the change, not focusing so solely on this one particular application, because as I said, as Phil kind of indicated earlier, one, they'd be back before this commission for a site plan, which they'd have to demonstrate compliance, but also they're going to have to come back to you for a special exception for the liquor license. So there'll be a public hearing where some of the, as like basically noise, hours of operation, additional screening and other sort of things will be part of that discussion.
Okay.
Dave,
Can
does that
you?
help, Dave?
It's hard. Your voice isn't coming through really clearly. There are certain things in a B1 zone that are as of right. and those things would be permitted here. I believe that brewery would have to have a special exception in order to be used or to create that use, and that would require a public hearing at that time, and also a site plan amendment. But I think our comments on whether or not the array of as of right uses in the B1 zone are appropriate. I think that's what we should be looking at. Anyway, Bruce, go ahead.
I just have 2 points. One is I feel compelled to offer this piece of information. Mr. Doyle asserted that the building itself, that barn, is above the floodplain zone, that none of that barn is within the floodplain zone. I spent about 20 minutes looking at it one night this week, and I don't think that's, I see it differently. And after having spent time on it, but I haven't seen a map that has both the floodplain and the building. But it looks to me like the floodplain zone encompasses almost the entire building. And to the extent that that's important to a purchaser, you might want to verify exactly where that floodplain is, because it doesn't, I didn't get the same read on it that you did. So I offer that as a piece of information, not for debate necessarily, but that's my sense. The other thing is that about, you mentioned some history of the property and changes in zones and work that was done, and that you were affiliated with some of it around 2010. And I know that there was a thing done by the state of Connecticut called the Route 10 Corridor Study that recommended the creation of a shortcut roadway from over by the bridge on the west side of the Farmington River that would cut off the traffic light and would go behind somewhere. I didn't find a sketch of it, but it was described as running from just west of the bridge, cutting off the corner and the traffic light, and also the light at Winslow Place. It was to enter Route 10 down by Stratton Brook Road. And I'm interested in whether that has any implications. Maybe, I don't know, the state only gets 10 years to use their studies. I'm just guessing, and after a while they go away, but that's not going away. It's still out there for anybody who wants to see it. The Route 10 Corridor Study. It ran from New Haven to the Massachusetts line, so it was quite an investment. And I was surprised to see that notion of that roadway going across this parcel for sure, if it's ever going to be done. But I don't know, you may have been aware of that work at the time that the Winslow Place zoning was changed and the Riverview was being developed conceptually or in fact.
Bruce, I looked for that study and I couldn't find it recently. I've seen it in the past and I don't know where it is. I was online today trying to find it and I couldn't find it. It wasn't immediately available, but I remember having seen that at one point in the past, and I don't recall where the road was. And in regard to your first comment, that was the first thing we looked at, was where's the floodplain. What the floodplain, as far as we can tell, I've gone on to the new, on the town website is the new FEMA maps. The floodplain is just at the bottom back footing of the barn, which is great. But the only way we're going to know that is having the 2 foot or 1 foot topography done by the surveyor.
Okay.
We haven't paid the surveyor to do that yet. We want to see if we've got a zone change or not before we spend all that money.
I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Incidentally, I found the link for that Route 10 corridor study, so I put it in the chat in case anybody's interested.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane.
But that's something that I think the Planning Commission should be looking at in their comments and how it conforms to the Plan of Conservation and Development. Anyway, any other questions? Comments? Nobody in the commission wants to make a comment. Okay, we'll open it up to the public. I think, I don't know, we could go left or right in my screen, but you guys don't have the same screen layout. Duncan, why don't you go ahead and lead off? Please, can you keep your comments to about 3 minutes? We can always go back around if you feel you have to go further. Go ahead.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
You have to put yours on mute. Sorry, my wife is also in the room and she's on as well, so we've got a little echo going. My name is Duncan McKay. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Okay, how about now? Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry. My name is Duncan McKay. I live at 327 Hot Meadow Street, which is the red historic house directly across the street from Abigail's and directly across the street from the Red Barn. We have lived here since 1990. Our family, we've raised our family here. And we moved into this gateway area to Weetag and Simsbury because of its historic character. And indeed, as the Plan of Conservation and Development says, as one of its primary purposes is to protect, maintain, and enhance community character. We are, quite frankly, at a complete loss to see how turning the largest residential piece of property in this historic area into a commercial zone is in keeping with the Plan of Conservation and Development. We were unaware that this came before the Planning Commission, and quite frankly, we found out about this application purely by happenstance. There's been no communication with the neighbors by the developer, and there's been no consideration at all of what the surrounding neighbors think of this development. And when we look at the maintenance of the historical character, we have in the Plan of Conservation and Development, we have places that are considered to be sites that are attractive. The Dr. White Memorial Fountain right on our property is one of those gateway areas. We've got the Civil War Monument also directly across the street from this subject property. And I think Mr. Glidden hit this on the head. This is not about a brewery going in. This is about rezoning an almost 8-acre parcel of residential property with over 400 feet of frontage on Hot Meadow Street, with over 400 feet of property frontage on Hartford Road, turning it into commercial where we lose completely the ability to control, other than through site plan or special exception, but we lose the complete ability to control the character of our neighborhood. We can, as I believe, David, you mentioned, with a B1 zone, retail stores can go in as of right with an approved site plan. I don't think we want to see yet another small retail building right here in historic Hot Meadow at the gateway of this town. The application talks about the trend of commercialization on the east side of Hot Meadow. That's simply a false statement. The only prior change, other than Pettibone's Tavern, the original Pettibone's Tavern that's been there since the 1780s, and quite frankly hasn't been there as long as our house has been here. Our house is circa 1723. Other than that, it was back in 2008 was when the Riverview property changed, and that's on Winslow Place. That's not on Hot Meadow Street. There is a good chunk of beautiful residential property with a farm-like setting for this historic gateway area of Simsbury that will be forever taken away with a zone change. We have no control at that point in time about what uses are put to that piece of property. And to suggest otherwise, particularly without having consulted with any of the neighbors, is a bit disingenuous. So I will pass along my time, David, to others so that everybody has a chance to speak. And if we have a chance to continue, we did submit a letter to the commission, which I hope will be read into the record, or at least incorporated into the record, that has a more fulsome description of our complaint about this application. But suffice it to say, we think this is not in keeping with the plan of conservation and development. It irreparably changes the historic character of what is supposed to be the gateway to Simsbury. So thank you for the few minutes.
Thank you very much. And we did get letters from the abutters on your side of Hot Meadow Street. McAllen's, is it? The people that are next to you or behind you?
McCarty's.
McCarty's.
And they're also on right below my picture on, at least on my Brady Bunch screen. They're
Okay.
They're in
We had a letter
the
from
Greg
them.
Brady spot.
And a letter from the people, one more up. We got a communication from Mike Yakimore that he was in favor of it. We got other, I think 2 other letters that were opposed to the zone change and the idea of a brewery there. Let's see, the next person, Autumn Brook, I see you there. Do you want to speak?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. I would just echo what Duncan had to say. I know this is a zoning meeting to propose a zoning change from residential to business.
Excuse me, Autumn, can you say what your address is? That's one of our standard procedures.
Sure, yes. I live on 16 Riverside Road in Simsbury.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I echo Duncan's points. I agree with them, and those are my main points of concern as well. I do know this is a meeting to propose a zoning change from residential to business, and not necessarily the nature of the business. However, on hearing the purpose or the intent of changing the zoning, I did have to jump on and voice my concern. My 2-year-old daughter attends the daycare that is directly behind the Red Barn and the 332 Hot Meadow property. And here she strolls right in time. So say hi to everyone. I am, first and foremost, I want to say I am a business owner in Simsbury, my husband and I am an entrepreneur. And I champion all businesses. I support small businesses coming into Simsbury. I think it's great. I am not opposed to a brewery. I think that's exciting, but not here, not at this location.
Okay.
So I will say my concern being traffic, being historic preservation, and also being in close proximity to a daycare, I do not think is a wise decision for a brewery. Being a focal, being the main focus being people going to drink alcohol. I think we're all reasonable people. I don't think I need to, express concerns of the ramifications of that. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. McCarty's, Jennifer?
Good evening. It's Chris McCarty. My wife Jennifer is here with me.
Okay.
We reside at 327 Hot Meadow Street. We are in the same location as Duncan and Julie McKay, and we also own the lot adjacent between 343 and 327, the empty lot. Obviously, we worked with Julie and Duncan putting together their comments. We've sent our comments as well, and keeping with the 3 minutes and leaving whatever time for anybody else. We agree with all the points that have been made. We can go beyond, and somebody brought up at one point the state of Connecticut survey and the traffic and everything else that goes on. This isn't going to make any of it any better. I realize this is a zoning change meeting, and for the very same reasons everybody else has stated, we wholeheartedly concur.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else care to speak from the public? Chip?
Yes. Thank you, David. The Planning Commission, whenever they've been doing their plan of...
Could you state your address, please?
Oh, yes. Chip Houlihan, 2 Somerset Lane. Yeah, the Planning Commission has always wrestled with in their plan of conservation and development as to how to treat the whole Weetog area. Certainly across the street, across the the highway there. It's a residential area. But when you look at this particular piece of property, you have a business at Abigail's, you have a business with the daycare, and you have, back and forth residential and commercial going up the river. This presents an opportunity to develop the river in some kind of appreciation, to make it useful to the community. Today, the river is hidden. If it becomes a commercial site, there's the possibility of making it accessible, possibly developing a connection going up the river and giving the town an opportunity to realize access to the river, which is generally not attainable. The question was raised, well, what about this 11-year-old state plan? I think that if we're at 11 years after the fact, nothing has happened with respect to that, that I think that would be a weak basis on which to deny the zoning change. I think it's recognizable that the property that is there is rental property for residential, which is a commercial aspect. I think being able to utilize what is above the floodplain is a commercial area that is in keeping with that side of the street. I view the two sides of the street as being completely different and deserving of different consideration. And so I think that it makes sense to convert the property to commercial and then to, going forward, looking to see what the different elements are as to the site plan and as to the liquor permit and whether that would be permissible.
Can I speak? I want to make sure I was on mute before. This is Julie McKay.
Yes, Julie.
So Mr. Houlihan, I think it's really interesting that you're so cavalier about the use of what is our residential neighborhood.
Julie.
Yeah, point of order, yeah.
Please address the commission, and we're not going to have a battle between public attendees.
Well, I will address the commission and ask yourselves, I know this is not your residential property, but I would ask yourselves if you lived in your neighborhood and someone was proposing a commercial use right across the street, how you would be reacting right now. I have been in this town for over 30 years. I've worked on the historical commission. I have worked with the public library. We have been custodians of the White Memorial. We have plowed hundreds of thousands of dollars into our own property to keep it up and make it a proper gateway to the town of Simsbury. I just do find it particularly galling that people are just throwing around, the commercial change to the property across the street, which we don't know how it will be developed. We didn't even know about the planning and zoning discussions that were going on. I don't know about the notice requirements, but I do find it particularly galling that no one is considering the long-term effects of not knowing necessarily what's going to go in that commercial zone if the beer tavern doesn't go through, another gas station, another Cumberland Farms. And that's all I'm asking you to consider. You're supposed to be considering the safety of the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood. This notion that it is, trended towards commercial is, they expanded a parking lot at Pettibones. They expanded the parking lot at now Abigail's. That's not expanding the commercial use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your comments, by the way.
Mike, is there, I know that the abutters were listed on the application. Is there not a requirement to notify them?
No, there is not.
Okay. Okay, anyone else care to speak? Duncan, you want to speak again?
I just want to follow up and maybe close out for our side here. And it's not just our side and our side of the street, because this is a neighborhood. And again, I think as Julie said, there is no east-west divide. Again, the Abigail's has been there since 1780. Okay, we bought this property when everything else was residential, and it's remained that way with the exception of the 2010 parking lot expansion. So changing the largest residential piece of property in this neighborhood is not a side of the street issue. It is a neighborhood issue. It has a neighborhood impact. It is the gateway to Simsbury, and it right now is historic. We start unloading by putting whatever happens to fit in over there and they're able to get site plan approval for is not in keeping with the town plan of conservation and development. It's certainly not keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And again, regardless of the notice requirements, I don't have much faith in a neighbor who doesn't have the courtesy to come around and speak to the neighbors about intended uses for this area. We're not sacrificing our neighborhood for the greater good of commercial development in Little Weetag. And I really think it does bear repeating here that if this were a plan to be consistent with the neighborhood, and the application itself talks about not unduly changing the character of the neighborhood, then why hasn't the developer talked to us? Why are we finding out for the first time about this going before the town planning commission? Why are we hearing that there was an informal conference before you all? We weren't notified of that. Again, we happened upon this literally at a coffee meeting at the local mobile station where we overheard that this was going on. No attempt at all to reach out to the neighbors in this historic neighborhood. And I think that is wrong. I think you all should take this very carefully and very slowly, because once this zone is changed, there's no going back. You have irreparably changed the character of Weetag and the gateway to Simsbury. It can't go back. And I would submit to you that you change this, then the next one to fall is going to be Yakimore's place right next door. And then you have truly a Route 44 type now development coming straight through from here all the way up through Mitchell's. And that was never what Weetag was. That's never what it was intended to be. That is not the character of this town. I don't think that's how we want people to come into Simsbury and seeing that kind of development. That is the issue. Not whether we can put a cute little brew pub down there. All right. I too, as Auburn said, I too am, we are all in favor of small business. We'd love to see a brewery in town in a already existing commercial zone. There's plenty of commercial properties in town. Why aren't we directing those uses to properties that currently have the appropriate zoning and who are already there begging for businesses to come in? Why aren't we making use of those things instead of trying to irreparably change the character of this historic Weetag area? You have no other place in this town where you have, from White's Fountain through the Civil War Monument, where you have that much history and historic Abigail's, formerly Pettibone's Tavern. You don't have that anywhere else in this town, and it will be gone forever if this zone is changed.
I'm going to add to it. Thank you. I'm going to add, because this is important, and it was noted in my husband's letter, but we will consider the value to our property and the effect that it has on it. So I hope everybody is factoring that in, because we will not go quietly.
Julie,
this will affect our property values. People who have taken great care with their property and the surrounding property and White Memorial Fountain, and have been good citizens to this town. And if I sound emotional, it's only because I am. I feel somewhat betrayed by this whole process and the way that people are talking about this application tonight.
Yeah,
I really do.
I'm actually a certified residential real estate appraiser, and I can affirm that it will greatly affect property values, changing that zoning to business.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Commissioners, do you have any other comments that you'd like to make? I am of the opinion that it would be a good idea for us to keep this public hearing open for another meeting, because it will give people time. The developer can talk with people if he wants. There seems to be a feeling that public notice wasn't adequate, although I'm sure we followed the rules of public notice. The notices were placed in the paper and so forth. The notices before the Planning Commission were placed in the paper. So, we're following the rules. No, Mike?
No, so just when it goes to planning commission, it's just a referral. It's not a
Okay,
public hearing like this meeting. So
okay,
it's the planning commission doing their referral to you. But
okay,
it's just an advisory review of the plan of conservation development.
right, okay. We did follow the rules, but we do not require notice to the abutters. And I think if we were to leave it open, that could let communication flow among the parties, and we'll see where we get to next time. I don't know, that's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I
Commissioner?
personally doubt that the passion that I'm hearing from the abutting landowners can be changed by further conversations with the developer. I think they have a pretty fixed idea of the impact it's going to have on their property. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know that an extension of time is necessary.
Melissa, I think you're right. I think in my history here in the zoning commission, we've always listened very carefully to the residents and their objections and opinions. And I'm not saying we're disregarding them at all. But if we close the public hearing, then we've closed the public hearing. That's all.
Yeah, I would say that, a 2-week continuation isn't going to hurt anybody. So.
Dave, Dave, I remember specifically when this was done, when the Aspen Green proposal, the zoning support for that was being sought by Mr. Greenberg, and the zoning commission opted to hold the meeting open because myself and my wife were the only 2 members of the public that showed up for that meeting. So it was held open for 2 more weeks, and I think it was beneficial. I mean, it wasn't like there was a huge number of people there that didn't show up the first time, but I think it's a great gesture. And if it gets a few more people the opportunity, because the communication wasn't effective, but it met the requirements of the statutes. I think I'm fine with leaving this open for 2 weeks. I think there's clearly precedent for it too.
Yep. And Diane, your opinions?
I think I go with Kevin. There's no harm in it. I think it's gives people the opportunity to, if anybody else wants to speak. And I don't think 2 weeks is going to make or break anybody. I think it's probably not a bad idea.
Ann, you're muted.
Yeah, Ann, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Am I unmuted?
Now you're okay.
Sorry, I changed devices while this was all going on. Sorry about that. I was going to say as well, I agree with everything that Melissa just said. At the same time, I don't see where there's any harm in waiting another 2 weeks, letting people talk to each other, and maybe creating some better will than we have right now.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion to continue the hearing to the next?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue the public hearing until the next meeting on April 19th.
Patriots Day.
Wait, Mike, we do meet that day?
Do we have a meeting?
Yeah, okay.
We do.
And here, second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ann. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed. So it's 5-1. Any abstentions? No. 5-1, motion carries. We'll reconvene the public hearing at our April 19th meeting. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your interest and concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The old business, we will not entertain a discussion of the application since it's being continued. General commission business. Mike, we have outdoor dining. I didn't get a chance to read all of the, I know that the governor.
You're not the only one.
The legislature, I think, actually extended it to next year, right?
That's correct. And actually, you have Sarah Nielsen with the Main Street Partnership is here. And she's been working with Laura on this. I've asked Laura to take the reins on outdoor dining since she's the zoning enforcement officer now. And maybe if Sarah wants to talk about what she's hearing from some of her members in Simsbury. And we did this as kind of a proactive gesture. Sarah, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Sure. First of all, thank you, commissioners, for giving me some time. As you can recall, this is actually a reworked document that we introduced and you voted on last year during the pandemic. So we've updated it, but if you haven't had a chance, it's actually a similar template from what Mike and I had done last year. And I worked with Laura this year to update it. So just very quickly, the House and then the Senate, has the Senate voted already, Mike? Yeah,
So.
the House and then the Senate voted to extend outdoor dining through March 31st, 2022. And we are asking for zoning to extend the outdoor dining as well. We were very successful in doing this last year. We actually were, Simsbury was very proactive. We did this before the executive order. And so we did it in anticipation of helping our businesses. Our restaurants still need this help. And I'll tell you, people are very excited. I think consumer confidence is very strong because we're now at 100% capacity. But what people don't recognize is that we still have the 6-foot social distance between tables in play. So the majority of almost all of my restaurants have not been able to go past 50%, even when we went to the 75%. So we're asking that this extension be granted, especially as social distancing is still required because the restaurants need it to make up the difference. They have that outdoor dining space. I'll also very quickly say that Mike, myself, the Farmington Valley Health District, the building committee, the building department, and the fire department all sit on this temporary committee. Last year, we did more than 8 applications, and the longest application was 24 hours, I think the average time. So we did them very quickly, and we got those restaurants the permits that they needed. So we're asking for the extension to follow what is making its way to the governor's desk as we speak.
Thank you, Sarah. Mike, I don't see any do we need to make a motion?
So, I mean, you can just make a motion to grant that authority to staff to approve or reprove and renew temporary outdoor dining facilities for various restaurants in Simsbury.
We did that last year and we didn't have a time limit on it, did we?
We tied it to the executive order that was in place at the time. Now, although
Actually, last year you did. It started at a 90-day time limit, Dave, but the executive order actually extended it.
Sarah,
beyond.
I'm sorry. We have staff here and it's their job to advise us. Thank you.
So yeah, we tied it. It was originally 30 days. We extended to 90. So really, we got last season out of the action by the commission last year. So this is really asking for the 2021 season for these restaurants. And like Sarah said, we're hearing that they need this bad.
I mean, I believe that they need it. The question is, when do we have to make a motion
We would like it tonight because I already have at least one request for modifications to their existing temporary outdoor dining setup from one facility that is waiting on staff. We explained to them that we discussed this with the zoning commission at their next meeting, and that if we were to have the authority, we will work with them on getting their outdoor dining approved within the close of this week.
Okay. Yeah. Did you give us a proposed draft or not?
No, Laura, we just gave them the documents, correct?
We gave them the approval document and the frequently asked questions document. I'm sorry, I'd start my camera, but my computer crashes every single time I do.
Okay.
It was uploaded and I also emailed it to the commission.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, we would just look for authorizations to continue through March 2022, the issuance of temporary outdoor dining. And I will say,
Sorry.
and I will say, from the approvals we dealt with last year, we did not have, I think we may have one issue, which was a noise complaint, which was handled by the operator. Otherwise, everything was flawless to the restaurants that participated.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Dave, hold it. Wait a second.
What?
Wait a second. I'm in support of continuing this thing, and that's for sure. What I want to understand is, are we being asked to approve these forms? Or are these forms that are promulgated by staff as they were last year, again this year, not requiring specific approval by the commission? My point being partly that if we need to approve these forms, somebody needs to explain what's here. Where are the changes from last year that we should be aware of that we're being asked to approve? Not having had time, I didn't get this till after 6 o'clock. And I know the chairman mentioned he hasn't read it at all. So what is this? Is this work that the staff is accountable for? Pardon me?
Okay, let's ask Mike, is there significant changes?
Well, one change that's different from last year is that per request of the health department, we have a note on there that table service, liquor service requires food. That was something that was, as you remember last year, the governor was talking about where establishments were kind of trying to operate as a bar, but not really be a restaurant. So this is really aimed at your restaurant, you're providing food service. The other was removing some references of previous requirements that are no longer relevant to the current regulations. And Laura, I'm trying to think, do we have anything else?
The other thing would be the renewal, because now we have an option to renew the permit for last year if no changes were made.
And the way it would work with the renewals is literally, staff's going to contact the establishments. We're going to go out. If it's the same setup, number of tables, location as last year, we're going to hand them a permit. We're going to try to get it out the door so they're ready to go and they're legal. And, that form that we've been using for the permits, we've been, at least last year, how I was handling it, I was signing them and giving them to the operators and saying, listen, you have a permit, you're legal. So if anyone asks, here's something with my signature on it, which was, I took pictures of it and then uploaded it into our files so that we have a copy both in our files digitally, but also the operator receiving it. And Sarah,
So these forms, no, you weren't using these forms last year?
No, we were using these forms last year. We just changed the FAQ. We did that. It was last March. We changed some of the things on there. Like I said, the relevant information no longer is required. Like, for example, there was a requirement that you had to put your certification with consumer protection. It had to be visible at the door when you went to these establishments. The other was when indoor dining was closed and they only had outdoor dining. We said that you didn't have to have your restrooms open to the public. That was the big concern that a lot of restaurants were saying, that if the indoor space is closed, why am I opening my restrooms? Because that triggered, at the time, the restroom had to be cleaned on a frequency of like every 15 minutes, 30 minutes under a previous sector rules. So we've tried kind of finding ways to clean up some of the standards that are no longer applied to the current laws or sector rules, but more importantly, make it so that it's easier for the operators to understand. I don't know, Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just to Bruce's question, Bruce, everything has been carried over from last year. So again, the health districts, the silverware needs to be wrapped. They need to be providing disposable menus or QR codes. So all of the relevant safety issues have been carried over from last year. We've updated where the regulations or the bills, again, because it was a House Bill, I think 6610 or something. So we've updated that language to reflect the newest bills going through the House and Senate. And as Mike mentioned, we've moved some of the outdated, like they had to be certified in order to reopen, which is no longer the case. So we've only removed the, that extra language. Other than that, we haven't made any substantive changes.
Okay, so if we were to make a motion that you could, to permit staff to issue permits for temporary outdoor dining in accordance with the guide to temporary outdoor dining that you gave us and the application that you gave us, that would satisfy your need.
Yes.
Bruce, how's that?
Hey, it's okay with me.
Okay.
I was just trying to be clear. What were the changes? And I think I get it, but
Okay.
I want to make this easier on the staff, because if they can do their own forms, as long as they're consistent with state guidelines and past practice, then we don't have to keep looking at these things, whether it's once a year or, they have enough experience and judgment to do the forms themselves.
Right.
But
and we'll
Okay, let's let Kevin attack it.
Yeah, I can't tell if I'm Zoom, if I'm on mute or not.
No, you're not muted.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant authority to the Office of Planning and Community Development to issue temporary outdoor dining permits subject to all conditions outlined by Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7MM dated 5/12/2020 and as amended, and substitute bill number 6610 effective until March 31st, 2022.
That adequate, Mike?
Thank you.
Okay, can we have a second?
Yeah, the only thing, Mike, I didn't know is if we needed to give specific, does it have to be the code enforcement officer? So I didn't know that. So we just give it to your office.
Yeah, give it to our office. Laura's going to take the lead as the zoning enforcement officer, but we work hand in hand. So, and we'll try to keep the commission in loop when we approve these things.
Okay, can we have a second?
Diane's hands up. Oh.
Diane's hands up, okay. Motion was made by Kevin and seconded by Diane. Now, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. And abstaining? None. Okay, so it carries 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Okay, next item on the agenda is find the agenda. Okay. Regulation update workshop. We have a couple of things. One, the sign regulation draft was uploaded, and I think it looks promising to me. I think we ought to schedule a workshop and go through it page by page, paragraph by paragraph. So I don't know when would be a good time.
May I ask Mike a quick question?
Sure.
Mike, I was just able to briefly peruse it before I hopped on. It's like 15 something pages. Wow, that's a lot of work. Thank you. Was there anything in there about, I know that we had knocked around the idea of,
Melissa, let's not get into the discussion of it. Let's schedule a workshop.
okay,
Okay. I know it's antsy and it's fun to get into
Wouldn't
it.
the April 19th meeting work?
April
Mike, do you think
19th.
we have a whole lot of agenda items coming up on the 19th?
We
Right.
have a public hearing continuation.
Yeah.
Mike?
So currently that's really what you have on the docket.
One
I'm
other public
aware-
hearing.
Oh, sorry, you're right. There's a second public hearing for 2 Tungsten Road.
For what?
Okay.
The present company, they want to put an outdoor bar at the present company in Terriffill.
Oh, okay. I think it's going to take an hour and a half, I think, of discussion.
And do you want, so Bob DiCrescenzo, he reviewed and assisted with this work. Do you want Bob to attend that meeting? So at least everyone has time to digest this proposal. And if you have questions, that Bob can be here to answer it.
I don't know. I think
We've been
what do
over
you guys
this
think?
ground before. We already decided we wanted DiCrescenzo to be here, and he said he'd be here, and that was last December, and he's still not here. But he finally sent something, I think. Mike, can you confirm that this is hot off the presses at Bob DiCrescenzo's law firm, or is this your work?
This is from Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Both of us work together on this, but this is from Bob.
Okay.
It's, I don't want to sound, anything more than I am. I think there was a commitment. DiCrescenzo was supposed to be here to share insight on this thing. So hopefully we could get it over with in one meeting. Yeah, but I don't feel obligated to, ruminate over whether it's appropriate to have the town attorney here. We already crossed that bridge.
Okay.
We just need the guy to step up. He said he'd be here, and so far
Okay.
he's not.
Okay. Kevin, comments?
Well, so then we could do, an off Wednesday, an off Monday meeting. That instead of the 3rd, we could go to the 4th, whatever Monday that is. 19 plus 7.
Well, let's see what
26.
happens on the 19th. If Bob shows up and we can have it on the 19th, fine. If
Well, the only
he's
is
not
we're
able to
having,
do it, then maybe we can have our own session on the 4th Monday.
yeah. The only problem with inviting Bob to the 19th is we have no idea how long that meeting will take beforehand. And if we did a special meeting, then we know that, we're dedicated to him. We want to use his time wisely.
Well, maybe what we
And
need
our
to do
billables.
is communicate with Bob and see if he's available for that 4th Monday.
Right.
And then,
Or we could do the second Monday. I'm not opposed to the second Monday, it could be next Monday too. Just one of the off ones from us, from either the 2nd or the 4th.
well, we have time to schedule that meeting. So let's talk to Bob D and see when the best time to schedule that meeting is. Either next Monday or the Monday after our second meeting.
Right, yeah, either the 2nd or 4th. And we don't have any problems with room reservations, so that should be easy.
Yeah, so
Right.
it looks like next Monday, just the police commission's meeting. So this is available next Monday at 7 PM. We could broadcast. So if that works with Bob's schedule, right now, quick look at it from staff. If everyone here can make next Monday at 7 PM, it sounds like a good day.
I cannot.
Do the workshops get broadcast?
Yes.
Okay.
It's still official meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, let's see who can attend and see whether Bob can be there before we schedule it.
I'll call him.
Okay. And we know that we have one person who can't be there. Okay. Industrial zone regulations. Mike, you were going to do something and I didn't see it.
So I went around looking at theater uses. That was one of the things that was outstanding that we discussed, and everyone kind of puts it in as a separate use. I know that, there was a discussion, do you just say performing arts and make it sweeping? The communities I looked at, and I kept to the same sort of use, the same group that we looked at previously. How did they classify it? Not just in industrial zones, but just in general. and they're listing as a separate use. So that would need to be added to our list, along with just cleaning up the approvals from the siting council and the one other item that we had. The changes to the retail, because I'll remove the cap on the minimum size and put just a maximum for permitted as of right versus then specially permitted above the same, what is it, 12,000% and above, 12,000 square feet.
I thought you were going to do a draft for us.
Yeah, no, I know I had to look. I know I was looking at that term, just the theaters, and then, like I said, I apologize if I don't have that. The draft is not prepared for this evening, but it's just that was one of the things that I had outstanding on how to treat that. Because we were going to lump it in. Do we put it in with the indoor recreation, some of the dance studios, etc.? And then the other thing, outstanding one was the retail, which that's just the retail, which could remove the minimum size of 3,000 square feet.
Right, okay. So what do we do with this?
Yeah, so when do we want to do this?
So, I mean, I can have that for the 12th, and we can do that right after our sign discussion with Bob D.
Yeah, we'll be worn down by then.
Yeah.
Right. No
One
comment
of
on
those is
that.
enough.
Right.
All right, let's plan on that. So if Bob can do the 12th, let's do that. And if not, we'll do it after their second meeting, the fourth Monday of April.
Yeah, you can flip flop them. If Bob can't do the second, we'll do Bob on the fourth weekend, and we'll do the industrial one, the one that Bob can't make.
Sounds
Wait a
good.
minute, you want to schedule 2 meetings or?
Yeah, we're gonna book up April. Your Monday
Okay.
nights in April.
Okay, we got that, Mike?
I got it.
Okay, what else do we have?
That's it for this evening, at least for my stuff.
Okay,
Oh, one thing, maybe just to update the commission. So the Planning and Development Committee voted on or reviewed some joint favorable reports on some of the bills. One particular Senate Bill 1024 that you submitted testimony in opposition. The draft version that was joint favorable removed the transit-oriented development provisions in the regulations. So the as of right 4 units and above around a half-mile radius of transit locations, that has been removed from the bill. However,
And also the Main Street provisions were stripped out, correct?
yes, but
and they also,
just the warning is that it's being determined. It's still a work in progress. So therefore, these things could pop up in that bill again. So
okay,
I can send to the commission a copy of its summary from COST, the Council of Small Towns. They sent out a pretty good summary of what occurred at the Planning and Development meeting, if everyone's interested.
Mike, is that the meeting of last Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah, because there was a pretty good article in the Hartford Current about it on Thursday.
There's also
I'd
the
like to
fair
get it
share.
done and send it out.
There's also that fair share bill that I think the OCA was sponsoring. That just takes a totally different approach. That was also passed out of committee, and that's a significant bill.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah,
that's.
I think it would be helpful to get the cost analysis though.
yeah,
But, yeah.
that would be good.
I'll forward that to the commission this evening, so you'll have that and kind of see, because you're right, that fair share bill that's a kind of sleeper that came up where basically there'll be a housing study that's going to be performed for the entire state. And then the need for affordable housing is kind of going to be looked at a regional approach through the COGS. So the COGS are going to be told you have to promote X units throughout your region, which then trickles down to the communities to say, out of the X units, like Simsbury and Krog, you're responsible for Y. the fair share throughout the region.
Right, I like the local control aspect of it and that we would be able to come up with the plan on our own, but it's a significant chunk of units, like 1,200 units for Simsbury or something like that. So
it could, well, I mean, I think what's going to happen is that housing study really is going to determine how many units will actually be faced.
I think that housing study has already happened.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, who did the study? Who's the authority on this? That, without going into the whole thing, but I'm curious, who's the authority that created the study?
The Department of Housing is supposed to be in charge of this, and OPM.
I think if you look on the entity that is advocating for this bill is Open Community Alliance. I think if you Google them, you can find a lot out about the bill and about those details.
Thanks.
But again, it gives us the local control that we so objected to in SB 1024.
But it set goals for us.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Got to get a plan.
Did cost review that as well?
Yes, they did.
Okay, yeah. You'd send both. That'd be good.
Yeah, so the email I'm going to send you is a summary. It's going to have a lot of different bills on it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good. Okay. From Maine.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
I second.
Second, how about from Washington?
I second it too.
Motion from Maine and a second from Washington to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.